Hey, how's it going? This video is on transcending addiction. So to help those of you out there who are addicted to something or some behavior and you want to change that. So there's many ways to go about changing it. And we could say that some ways are more beneficial to you than others. And there's lots of strategies people have taken to transcending addiction. Some of those involve like moving to a whole other country to be as far away from that place where they were addicted as possible. Sometimes they carry their addiction with them when they move. So the purpose of the techniques in it and approaches and understandings that I'm gonna share with you is to help you really transcend the addiction, which means to reach a place in yourself where you really are not interested in that thing or activity or behavior anymore. So it's meant to be a process of releasing the addiction at the root. And typically this process does not happen overnight. And the information that I'm going to be sharing in these videos is meant to help you get there. And depending on who you are, this information in this video or other videos might be really, really helpful. They might offer like a great leap in progress. And ideally the hope is that this information leads to permanently transcending your addiction. Now, I know that a lot of people don't believe in that. I know that some people believe that, with addiction, you can only go into recovery and that's it. And while I have great respect for all of the different approaches to transcending addiction and for those who do it, I do personally believe and have seen that it is possible to actually go beyond recovery and become free and not live a life of being identified as someone who has once been addicted and is now in recovery and will always be in recovery. It's possible, I believe, to be healed of it. And maybe it's God doing the healing. Maybe it's a combination of God and us. And personally, I believe that it's everything going on here is God, or the divine, or however you want to see it. I do perceive that it is possible to reach a point where you're no longer afraid that you're going to go back into the activity or the drug or the behavior, because you can just feel that it means nothing to you and it doesn't mean anything to you anymore. And when you get to that place where you can look at the drug or the alcohol or someone drinking it next to you, or think of the act, if it's an act that you're addicted to, and not feel anything, not feel a pull, then we might say that you've transcended it. And if in addition to that, you understand why you used to want it on a deep, deep level, you understand what it was really offering you, why you were taking it, why you were doing it, then we would say that you've transcended it. You've literally learned what the addiction was giving you the opportunity to learn, which might be a bit different, a different perspective than you may have heard of in the past in regard to addiction. Most people look at addiction as a bad thing. Well, it's possible that from the vantage point of our soul and having many lifetimes where we evolve, that an addiction is actually an opportunity or part of a process of us learning something more deeply about ourselves and life and God. And that going through the process of addiction and then transcending it learning our way through it and out of it, is actually a process of wonderful evolution and growth, and allows us to learn things that we otherwise wouldn't be able to learn, to know, to understand deeply. And that the lessons gained from that process of becoming addicted, then moving through it and transcending it in a self-aware, self-accountable, self-loving manner, in a wise manner, that the lessons learned from that are so valuable and so influential in regards to the rest of our lives and future lifetimes, and in regards to our soul learning process. And that once having gone through that, we can become a different person that is more loving, more understanding, wiser, and it maybe even has the capacity to operate more in alignment with God and helping others, and without going through that process of addiction, maybe we could have never made so much progress. So that's a different viewpoint maybe of addiction than you've heard of elsewhere, where people tend to look at addiction as, oh, just this bad thing, and judge it, judging addiction as bad. And oftentimes the people going through addiction are judged as being bad, wrong, or selfish. And in this process, I would recommend learning to completely let go of any judgments that you have of yourself or the addiction, because those judgments aren't helping, and typically they only make people feel worse. And when people feel worse, they tend to seek something out to help themselves feel better, and usually that fuels the addiction. So, for example, if an alcoholic is feeling really badly about him or herself because they are judging themselves for being bad, for having the addiction, then typically what they'll do is seek out a drink to make some of that pain go away. And that's the thing about addiction and people who are addicted, is that these are people who are oftentimes going through pain and suffering inside. And the behavior or the drug, whatever they're addicted to, is a distraction from that. It offers a sort of temporary relief or escape. And it's oftentimes not until that pain is so strong inside of us that we start to use a substance or an activity to distract from that pain. And someone might look at that and say, oh, that's terrible. And someone else might look at that and say, well, kind of like a pimple coming to a head when it's ready to pop. When the pain gets so bad that it's a symptom of the pain is an addiction, at that point, that pain is surfacing like that pimple for the person to actually really face it. The pain that's underneath the addiction, to really face it, to face that part of themselves. And so, in a way, the addiction is a symptom of the opportunity for a big transformation, a big change. When we judge the addiction as bad or wrong, we sort of put a barrier between us and understanding what the addiction is really all about. We end up getting into this process of fighting the addiction, of being at war with it, instead of understanding ourselves and our process and the pain that's underneath. And so any judgments of the addiction, any judgment of your behavior, seeing yourself as bad or wrong, or you doing that as bad or wrong, is really only going to make it harder to stop. Only going to make it harder to understand. And in this talk, in this discussion, we've brought up some very important points, some main ones being that beneath an addictive behavior is some sort of pain or suffering that we or that person is trying to escape from. And if we can just stop judging ourselves for a moment and stop judging the addiction, or stop judging the person that is addicted, so that we can stop adding more pain to the process, and instead start to open up to understanding what's the deeper pain that's driving the behavior. What's the deeper pain that's driving this addiction? What is the deeper pain that person or we are trying to escape from? Well, now you're getting to the core, or the nugget, or the fuel that's driving the addiction. And of course, the addiction, it doesn't help the person understand the pain, really. It's an escape from the pain. It's a distraction from the pain. And so only really a process of wanting to understand the pain, having that intention, is going to help you to work through that. And judging something doesn't lead to that. Because when we judge something, then we fight it, or we avoid it, or we run away from it. And understanding something requires us to be able to hold it in our hand and look at it from different angles. And things that we judge, we just want to throw them away. We want to throw them over our shoulder. The thing about an addiction is that, and trying to judge these sort of issues away, is that like a rubber band, they when we throw them away, they boomerang back at us. So, and by the way, someone who is in pain, a child of God, every human being is a child of God, that is in pain is not bad or wrong. A child of God that's in pain and is trying to get relief or escape or some distraction from their underlying pain is not bad or wrong. And oftentimes these children of God who are in this pain have often gone through some challenging experiences in the past that has left a mark that they're holding on to. If that mark is found and released consciously, if that person is helped to do that, then the addiction goes away. It's simply a matter of guiding that person to that point, or through that process. So the value placed on the addictive substance or the addictive act is actually placed on it because it helps bring that relief. It helps bring that distraction from a deep, deep pain. And without that deep, deep pain, there is no value of the addiction. The addiction has no value. It has no allure. It has no appeal because it doesn't offer the escape, because there's nothing to escape from. So these videos are that I'm going to be recording are meant to help you, help yourself or someone you love to go through this process of understanding why you're addicted, and doing so in a self-accepting, self-loving manner, in a way that's loving and beneficial for you and gentle. And I hope that it's very, very helpful for you. The information that I'll be sharing comes from talking with many different spiritual teachers and studying with from different doctors and therapists, and I'm a life coach and a spiritual counselor, and I do this one-on-one over the phone. And I do want to give one special mention of John Jones, who's also a life coach and spiritual teacher, who I've learned so much from in this process. Please look at the other videos in the addiction playlist that we have on our YouTube channel, and I hope that each video is very helpful for you. Again, the takeaway from this video is not to judge your process of addiction, to accept it, and to, instead of spending your energy judging it or trying to fight it, to shift your intention and to apply that positive energy towards a positive thing. For example, understanding the root cause of why you're actually seeking out that drug or that activity, understanding the pain that's fueling it, understanding the suffering that's fueling that, the suffering that you're trying to escape, the suffering that you've been trying to suppress. Because the addiction is really not just physical. It's really deeply rooted in the emotions. And once that emotional aspect of the addiction is cleared, then certainly you'll be able to clear the physical aspect of the addiction. Because it's the emotions that drive the behavior and the wanting and the desiring and the addiction itself. So in these videos, we'll help you work through that. And please let me know if you find this helpful, because the feedback is helpful for me in the process of doing my best to help you.